Well, again, my name's Dan Hansen, and I get to pastor this wonderful church. Welcome all of those that are joining us online. Before I jump into the message, I want to share with you that our missionaries, Joshua and Shannon, all the way from Romania, we had them here via live streaming a few weeks ago, and we received a deputation offering to bless them. This is a picture of the family. I want you to know it was probably our largest deputation offering in recent history. $2,800 came in to bless this family. So thank you for your generosity. Shannon had emailed me this week and said it's been such a blessing to receive that offering because they are moving to Italy, and she just went through all that is going on, and so that's a huge blessing to this family. So we were in touch this week. They said thank you for just blessing them with this amazing offering. So I want to jump in to the message now. Have you heard of cancel culture? Have you heard of cancel culture? I had to Google it the first time that I had heard this phrase, cancel culture. And basically, what it amounts to is if someone thinks differently than you, behaves differently than you, maybe even believes differently than you, then you just cancel them. You just cancel them out of your life. And it's really the culture that we're living in today. So just to give you some examples, Biden people cancel Trump people, and Trump people cancel Biden people. And then Black Lives Matter people cancel Blue Lives Matter people, and Blue Lives Matter people cancel Black Lives Matter people. And a lot of times mask-wearing people cancel non-mask-wearing people, and non-mask-wearing people cancel mask-wearing people. It kind of goes like that. And then, people dig up stuff from our past. I don't know if you have any dirt in your past, but people can dig up dirt from your past and bring it up to the present and cancel you, get you fired. And maybe you don't like somebody and you have dug into their past and figured out some things about them, and it just justifies why you are canceling them. It justifies the fact that you're not going to have anything to do with them. So it can look like being blocked or unfriended on social media. It can look like being ignored or just rejected. It can result in being fired. That's what cancel culture is really all about. So here's the question that I'd like us to think about this morning. Would Jesus cancel anyone? Would Jesus cancel anyone? And if we are the church, if we are the body of Christ now, the church, that's what the body of Christ is the church, that's who we are. Maybe, a better question would be, would we cancel anyone as the church? Would we practice cancel culture? So the reason that we're doing this series, the bigger table, is because I want our community of faith to be more open and to be more intentional about having people sit at our table that may think differently than us, may behave differently than us, and may even believe differently than us. And the way we're going to do this over the next 3 weeks is we are going to look at the habits of Jesus Christ. We're going to look at the habits of Jesus Christ and how he lived, and then I want us to ask ourselves this question: do we have the same habits as Jesus Christ? Are we living the same way as the person that Christ's followers say they follow? So, I don't know if there's any better place than the table to reveal habits, because eating reveals habits. Our family just went out for a dinner last night to celebrate a special occasion. Our son, Mac, got his first real job. He's going to be working for Ultium Cell up in Lordstown. So we're praising the Lord that Matt got his first real job. He went from Taco Bell to Ultium Cell Incorporated. I'm telling you, it's a big jump. Taco Bell was his first job. Yeah, he's here this morning, actually. So We're praising the Lord for that. So we went out to dinner, and as soon as we got there, you're picking out where you're going to sit and who's going to sit by who, and you start seeing the habits that we all have. Are we polite? Do we say, please pass the salt, or we just reach and grab it? And there's different size forks, and do you know which fork goes with which, the salad and the meat and those kind of things? And, do you pray at meals or not? We got all the way through the appetizers, and we hadn't prayed. I'm like, we haven't prayed. And my dad said, well, we were waiting for the pastor to lead us in prayer at this meal. So waiting on you, son. I'm like, oh, you got me, Dad. So we prayed because we typically pray at the meal. And then, there's the napkin that wraps the silverware. And you can either use that to put on your lap, or some people use it as a hanky to blow their nose. You can just, eating reveals habits, right? When we get around a table. And so Jesus, in Luke's gospel, he comes strolling into the world, and he is making all things new as he strolls into this world. And Jesus is revealing new habits. Jesus is breaking the cultural norms. Jesus is thinking differently than the people are thinking. Jesus is behaving differently than the people are behaving. And Jesus is even believing differently than the people are believing. Jesus is transforming and breaking all of the cultural norms. Here he comes strolling in to Luke's gospel. And he decides that he's going to introduce these new habits around a dinner table of all the places. So you may be asking, well, okay, what did he do? And for you to really understand what he did in Luke's gospel, you have to understand 4 rules that were around the dinner table in Jesus' day. And so rule number 1 was this, that meals managed boundaries. So when you would gather around a table, typically a family meal, it was just your family. And then on special occasions, the invitation list would grow and there would be more people at the table. But invitations managed who belonged and who did not belong at your table. That was rule number 1, okay? Rule number 2 was meals revealed social rank. So there was always a host at a meal. The grand poobah, the top dog was at the table. And your social rank was based on how close you sat to that person. So the closer you sat to the host, the higher your social rank was. The farther away from the host, the lower your social rank. It was like floor seats at an NBA game versus the nosebleeds. The people on the floor, they have a socially high rank. The rest of us in the nosebleeds, we don't have this high social rank. That was just the rule of the day. Number 3, this was the 3rd rule, meals were reciprocated. Meals were reciprocated. So if you invited me to a meal and I accepted, then I was obligated to invite you to a meal. This wasn't a courtesy, this was a must, this was a rule. So you carefully decided which invitations you were going to accept. Because if you invited me and I really didn't want to come to your table, then I was going to reject your invitation because I knew I would be obligated to invite you to my party, and I really didn't want you at my party. Do you get that rule? Do you understand? Just shake your head or say something. Amen. You got it? Okay. Rule number 3. All right, rule number 4 was this. Meals helped or hurt your social status. So there was always an A list, a B list, and a C list. So the A list were people that if you invited and they came, they gave you points, right? You were going to be looked upon in a more favorable way if they showed up at your party. So it took courage to invite those people because you risked rejection. Because they were higher than you, they could look at it and say, I don't think I'm going to their party because I know I don't want them at my party. Are you catching me? You catch the drift? All right, so now the B-list people, they were people just like you. You could invite them, and they were pretty safe to invite, and they would probably come because they were just like you. And then there was the C-list. These were people that they weren't cool enough for you, all right? They would take away cool points. You've been at school. You know the kids that you would invite to your party because if they came to your party, you wouldn't want people hearing that they were there. So that was the C list. They really weren't even in your mind because you knew that you did not want them at your party. Now, it could be real easy to kind of throw rocks at these rules, but this is just how it was. People were picky about their table guests. People liked the better seats. People excused themselves from invitations that would obligate them. And then people thought of each other in the pecking order fashion. And into this world, Jesus comes teaching. One Sabbath, when Jesus went to eat in the house of a prominent Pharisee, he was being carefully watched. So apparently, Jesus had been teaching in the synagogue on a Sabbath, and this prominent Pharisee invites Jesus to dinner. So he's taking a chance on Jesus because Jesus is the new guy, but he sees Jesus as having enough worth to risk this dinner invitation. And since Jesus is new, the prominent Pharisee and his friends are closely watching his dinner habits. Well, on the way to the Pharisee's house, there in front of him, in front of Jesus, was a man suffering from abnormal swelling of his body. So here's Jesus, going to this dinner invitation. He comes across a man who has abnormal swelling. Now, the curse of this sickness was the man craved water. The very thing that was killing his body was craving more of. So Jesus comes across this man. So Jesus asked the Pharisees and experts in the law, is it lawful to heal on the Sabbath or not? But they remained silent. So Jesus asked these guys, for permission, can I heal this guy? But they're dumbfounded, and they remain silent. So taking hold of the man, he healed him and sent him on his way. Then he asked them, if one of you has a child or an ox that falls into a well on the Sabbath day, will you not immediately pull it out? And they, again, had nothing to say. So Jesus heals this man. He heals this man, and then he looks at them and says, if you had a cow or a kid and they fell into a hole, wouldn't you do something to help them out? But Jesus, once again, is met with silence. Complete silence. Kind of like this room right now. When he noticed how the guests picked the places of honor at the table, he told them this parable. See, Jesus had been being watched by these Pharisees and these high keepers of the law. And now Jesus is watching them. And Jesus is watching them just crave for the places of honor, to scramble for the best seats around the table. And I wonder, as Jesus was watching this scene, if his mind went back to the bloated man who craved this water, this thing that was killing him. And I wonder if Jesus thought about these guests. I wonder if he had this thought that these people were craving what they already had plenty of, and that is status, because they're already with this prominent Pharisee. That they wanted status, that they were craving the seats of honor just as much as that bloated man was craving water, the very thing that was killing his body. And Jesus, being an equal opportunity healer, he offers these people a cure for their disease. When someone invites you to a wedding feast, Jesus says, do not take the place of honor, for a person more distinguished than you may have been invited. If so, the host who invited both of you will come and say to you, give this person your seat. How embarrassing would that be? Then humiliated, you will have to take the least important place. But when you are invited, take the lowest place, so that when your host comes, he will say to you, friend, move up to a better place. Then you will be honored in the presence of all the other guests. For all those who exalt themselves will be humbled, and those who humble themselves will be exalted. Jesus says, take the worst seat. Jesus says, humble yourselves and let the host draw you up, but don't put yourself in this high place. And all through Luke's gospel, God is doing this. God is calling people from outside to inside. God is calling people from down to up. God is calling people from low to high. God is calling people from last to first. And Jesus, around this table, is suggesting a brand new habit. And this is the habit: to be humble. To be humble. And if you're saying to yourself, I think that's right, think twice. Are we really ready to accept this new habit? Because we compete for place all of the time. Only one person gets elected president. Not everyone gets the promotion or the raise. There are bell curves, and there are GPAs and ACTs and SATs that separate us. Everyone that graduates not with honors. There's only 3 laudes, and you may not have received any of the laudes. Not everyone stands on the podium at the Olympic Games. Although we hope that our athletes are in first, second, or third, not everyone will get a place at the podium. And we all have income brackets, and we all have social standings. Let's face it, you don't get very far in this world by accepting last place. Just ask the Cleveland Browns. No one has invited the Cleveland Browns to the Super Bowl for years. Now, I realize that may be changing. It seems like that may be the destiny of the Pittsburgh Steelers now. Please, no. But if it does, so be it. What we have to realize is this new habit that Jesus was suggesting was social suicide. I mean, he was way out of step with the cultural norms. This new habit would make anyone in their right mind say, Jesus has lost his marbles. But Jesus says this: don't seek status. Receive it as a gift from God. If we accepted this new habit, if we decided to be humble, could it cure dropsy? I mean, could it cure the thirst for status that bloats our egos? Could we survive by receiving honor as a gift rather than trying to wrench it from other people in our lives? I think it's worth a thought, at least. Well, as the story continues, you'll see that Jesus, he is an equal opportunity healer, but he is also an equal opportunity offender because he moves from the guest to the host. Then Jesus said to his host, when you give a luncheon or dinner, do not invite your friends, your brothers or sisters, your relatives, or your rich neighbors. If you do, they may invite you back, and so you will be repaid. Remember the rule of the day? But when you give a banquet, invite the poor, the crippled, the lame, the blind, and you will be blessed, Jesus says. Although they cannot repay you, you will be repaid at the resurrection of the righteous. Now, have you ever been invited to a party, and have you ever had the audacity to say something like this to your host? To say to your host, you know what? Scrap the A and B list, and I want you to go directly to the Z list. I want you to go to the poor. I want you to go to the crippled. I want you to go to the lame. I want you to go to people that will not raise your status. In fact, I want you to invite people to your table that might hurt your status, that might take points away from you. I want you to invite people to your table. When they see you sitting at that table, they may question your faith and your relationship with God. I want you to invite people to the table that are outcasts and don't think they belong in the church and don't think they belong in God's kingdom. Those are the kind of people that I want you to invite to the table. People that can't even pay you back. And Jesus is introducing the second new habit: to be merciful. To be merciful. And if you're thinking to yourself, that's right, I want you to think twice. Because our world doesn't work that way. Financial planners do not work a crowd of bums. College professors don't schedule lunch with high school dropouts. Coaches don't frequent the local hospital looking for recruits. Pastors do not inquire about the small little church with a bunch of hurting people. Graduating college students don't list jobless people on their reference sheet. And doctors don't open their practice in a blighted area of town. We connect with people who can help us. We connect with people who can raise our status. We connect with people when other people see us hanging out with them, our points go up and not down. This habit to be merciful, this habit would not be rewarded in any place except for one, the resurrection of the righteous. Don't focus on your list. Focus on God's list. Well, somebody at the table was real uncomfortable. And so the story goes, when one of those at the table with him heard this, he said to Jesus, really to change the topic, he throws out this saying, "Blessed is the one who will eat at the feast in the kingdom of God." That was the saying of the day. Blessed is the one who's going to eat at this feast at the resurrection of the righteous. And this is what Jesus does. Jesus wraps up his time at this table with one more story. Jesus replied, "A certain man was preparing a great banquet and invited many guests. And at the time of the banquet, he sent his servant to tell those who had been invited, 'Come, for everything is now ready. The party is ready. Come on, let's go. This is going to be amazing.' But they all began to make excuses. The first said, 'I have just bought a field and I must go and see. I'm busy. I am busy. Please excuse me.' Another said, 'I have just bought 5 yoke of oxen, and I'm on my way to try them out. I just bought this new toy, right? These new toys, I got to go try them out. Please excuse me.' Still another said, 'I just got married. I just got married. So I can't come.' I think that may be the most legit excuse. I don't know. I just got married. I can't come. Wife says I can't make it. Okay, you're excused. The servant came back and reported this to his master. Then the owner of the house became angry and ordered his servant, 'Go out quickly into the streets and alleys of the town and bring in the poor, the crippled, the blind, and the lame.' 'Sir,' the servant said, 'what you ordered has been done, but there's still room at the table.' Then the master told his servant, well, then go out to the roads and go out to the country lanes and compel them. Compel them to come in. Compel them to come in so that my house will be full. I tell you, not one of those who were invited will get a taste of my banquet." See, this host tries Jesus' new dinner habit. He invites the Z list. He gets away from the A list, the B list, and even the C list. And he goes to the Z list. He goes to the lame. He goes to the poor. He goes to the crippled. And he tells his servant, they won't believe your ears. They think it's just another trick. They think it's just another trick to get them in, to shame them. And so you're not just going to have to go to them, but you're going to actually have to compel them. You're going to have to convince them somehow, because somewhere back along the line they've been told they weren't worthy, and somewhere back along the line they've been hurt, and you're going to have to compel them and tell them that there is a place at the table for them in my kingdom, because they're not going to come on their own. And Jesus says, I want my table to be full. And you Pharisees, you experts in the law, you righteous people who think a certain way and behave a certain way and believe a certain way, you're missing it. And it's why my house is not full, because those who you call unclean, you won't even socialize with, you won't even talk to, you won't even meet, you won't even risk being seen with them because you're afraid of what other people will say about you when you reach to the Z list. But thank God he reached to me. Thank God he reached to me. Is there room at the table? Is there room at the communion table? This represents the table of communion. How do you get invited to this table? In fact, I want to ask you this question. How did you get invited to this table? Because I know you, and you're not righteous enough to be invited here. You can't improve God's social standing. People like you will cost God points if the word gets out that you're on the list. And there are no seats at this table, so how are we going to know who's the most important? And how could we ever reciprocate such an invitation from God? Could we produce an invitation equal to this? Does God really include you at his table? The good news is the answer is yes. The good news is the answer is yes, he includes you. That he wants you here. That even though you're on the Z list, he calls you to this table because he loves you. Are there any requirements? There sure are. The first requirement is this, that you come hungry. That you come hungry to receive the grace of God as a gift, because you cannot earn his mercy. It is truly a gift from God. And you must come humbly to receive his mercy. The second requirement is this: you must still be breathing. Are you breathing this morning? We're going to sing a song. And as we sing this song, I want you to prepare to receive the Lord's Supper. If there is sin in your life, it's time for you to confess that sin to him, to ask him for his mercy, to humble yourself before the Lord. This is time to ask the Lord to search your heart. Maybe you say, I'm all good. Maybe you should ask, maybe you're not all good. Maybe you should ask the Lord to search your heart and see if there be any wicked way in you. I also want you to just begin to prepare the elements. We have these individual cups for you. On the top is a piece of cellophane that you pull off to get to the bread. It's stubborn. And then the tin foil or foil is next, and it's even more stubborn. So you got to be careful, but to pull that off to get to the cup. Because once we sing this song, we'll be receiving communion immediately after. You won't have time to prepare these, so I'd encourage you to do it now. But let's sing. Let's worship the Lord. And this is your time to reflect and let God do work in your soul and your